Today I write another page of Jesus' diary, my diary. Some battles arrive quietly. No thunder, no confrontation, just a whisper wrapped in memory. Today, the desert didn't speak. It remembered, and what it remembered found me. I woke not to temptation, but to the ache of things I once loved. The feel of my mother's hand on my face after a long day. The sound of wood splitting in Joseph's shop, steady and sure. The way the village smelled when bread was pulled from the fire. None of these things should have hurt, but they did, because I had left them, not out of rebellion, but because love sometimes asks us to walk away from comfort to carry a cross. And yet, no one talks about how hard it is to remember what you chose to lose. Today, my enemy wasn't the tempter. It was the past, and it didn't accuse me. It reminded me of everything I could never go back to. I sat on a rock and closed my eyes, but my heart opened like a wound, and from it, memories poured, sweet, sacred, unfinished. Before pain, where's the face of Satan? It often comes wearing the face of someone you love, and that's what almost broke me. Not evil, but longing. Have you ever tried to obey, with your heart full of echoes? If you've ever wept not because you were wounded, but because you remembered something beautiful that you had to leave behind, then this page is for you. Like this video, if you've ever loved something deeply and still chose to walk away, because obedience doesn't always begin with strength. Sometimes it begins with a memory that breaks you open. The wind had stopped. The air was thick, not with heat, but with stillness. The kind of stillness that doesn't bring peace, but pressure, like the sky itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to remember something. The sun was lower today, but sharper. Its light sliced across the rocks like memory cuts across the soul. It didn't warm me. It exposed me. The sand beneath my feet was cooler but harder. Every grain felt like a word left unsaid. Every step a reminder that I was walking forward, while something inside me was pulling back. There were no voices, but I heard them anyway. Laughter for Nazareth, the distant rhythm of Joseph's tools, the soft call of my mother from the other room. None of it was here, but all of it was present. The desert hadn't changed, but I had. Today, it wasn't the heat or hunger that pressed in. It was love, love that had been real, and now felt unreachable. And inside me, grief, not loud, not sharp, but deep, like water buried beneath the earth, trying to rise. I sat down. The ground didn't welcome me, but held me, like it had seen others cry here too. I looked around, but I wasn't looking for shelter. I was looking for permission to feel what I had buried beneath my mission. The hardest part of calling isn't what you carry, it's what you leave behind to carry it. And today, the weight of what I left spoke louder than the desert itself. He didn't have a face. He didn't cast a shadow, but he stood in front of me, taller than pain, quieter than fear, more constant than the sun that watched me from above. It wasn't Satan. It was remembrance, not an enemy, not a lie, but a truth so old it hurt. He looked like me, but younger, still carrying the scent of wood and olive oil, still humming the melodies I used to hear from the workshop window, still smiling without the knowledge of blood, a betrayal of the weight I would one day carry alone. He said nothing, but his silence was louder than any accusation. He didn't condemn me. He reminded me of who I had been, of everything I had once touched and could never touch again. I try not to look, but my heart couldn't help it. I saw the table Joseph, and I never finished. One leg still unshaped, a promise left behind. I saw the ashes of a fire we never lit again, the warmth we never shared in those last nights. I heard my own voice echoing through the halls of memory, words I never said out loud, but always meant. I love you. I'm sorry. I wish I had more time. And then, Mary, her eyes, not tearful, just soft, knowing, the kind of look only a mother gives. One that says, you're here, and that's enough. She wasn't crying in this memory, but I was, because I knew I wouldn't be there. The next time she needed to hold someone who wouldn't save the world, just save her from being alone. That was the weight, not the future I had to face, but the past I had to leave. The beautiful, holy, unrepeatable past. The kind you don't run from. The kind you carry with you, even when it cuts. And suddenly, I wasn't fighting a serpent. I was fighting the part of me that still wanted to stay. Not to escape the mission, but to remain in the ordinary. To be held again. To be called son. To be loved. Not for what I would do, but simply for who I had always been. But I couldn't. Not anymore. That was the pain that almost destroyed me. Not temptation, but tenderness. Not evil, but memory wrapped in love. And love that wouldn't let go. And so I let it break me, because that's what love sometimes does. It breaks you before it builds you again. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just sat there, still, silent, surrendered. The air around me was dry, but inside it rained. Not with water, but with memory. I had prepared my body for hunger. I had braced my soul for darkness. But I had not prepared for this. The invasion of the past. A silent invasion. Beautiful and brutal. Memories came not as comfort, but as blades. Each one soft in color, but sharp in presence. The scent of cedar in Joseph's shop. The creak of floorboards as my younger brothers ran through the house. The way my mother said my name when no one was listening. And the sound of my own laughter. A sound I had not heard in a long time. These weren't just memories. They were pieces of me. Pieces I had laid down, but hadn't yet grieved. No one warned me that obedience could feel like mourning. That to carry the world's salvation, I would first have to bury my own comfort. That love would cost me the most precious things. Not in one dramatic sacrifice, but in the quiet ache of walking away from everything familiar. I wasn't tempted to sin. I was tempted to go back. Back to safety. Back to simplicity. Back to where I was known without being followed. Loved without being worshipped. Held without being feared. And for a moment, I wanted it. Not out of weakness, but out of longing. I miss being just a son. Not the one who would die. Not the voice in the wilderness. Just someone's child. And in that moment, I broke. Not loudly. Not violently. But deeply. The kind of breaking that leaves no bruise. Only silence. I bow my head. Not in shame, but in surrender. Because there comes a moment in every calling where the real battle is not between right and wrong, but between what you love and what you must leave. And that day I had to choose, hold the past or embrace the future I was born for. I wept, not because I doubted my purpose, but because purpose doesn't erase pain. It walks through it, and a memory, that beautiful memory, it did not destroy me, but did undress me. It removed every remaining layer of what I used to be. It left me naked in purpose, exposed to the cost of my obedience, but also made space. Space for deeper strength. Space for the kind of love that doesn't just carry miracles, but carries mourning too. So I stood, not taller, not stronger, but lighter. Not because the memory had left, but because I no longer clung to it. I carried it, yes, but no longer carried me. And that's when I knew the first enemy in the desert is not Satan. It's the part of your heart that still grieves the life you had to let go of, to become who God called you to be. So if you're standing in your own desert right now, and you feel haunted not by sin, but by memory, this page, this ache, this silence, it's yours too. Subscribe, not just to this channel, but to the quiet kind of faith that doesn't fight with noise, but endures with tears. Because before a cross is carried, a heart must first be broken. And this was my breaking. That day, I learned something no prophet had ever spoken. Something not written in law, but carved in the silence of sacrifice. I learned that obedience doesn't always look like strength. Sometimes it looks like grief. Real surrender is not the absence of emotion. It's the presence of love that hurts and still chooses to let go. I thought my trial would be Satan's voice, but it was my own memory that nearly unmade me. And yet, through that ache, I discovered something holy. You can love what you leave. You can carry the memory without being carried away by it. Because what you leave for God is never lost. It's planted, and what is planted in pain, if surrendered, will rise in purpose. I no longer feared the tears. They were not a sign of weakness, but of worth. The things I grieved were real, beautiful, sacred, but they were not more important than the reason I came. So I love them, and I let them go, because love, in its purest form, doesn't possess, it releases. And on that third day, before the devil ever spoke. I learned that some of the most dangerous battles are not against evil, but against the parts of your heart still holding on to what God asked you to lay down. And sometimes, the holiest thing you can do is weep over the good things you gave up and still walk forward. Today, I didn't defeat a demon. I didn't speak a parable. I didn't calm the storm inside the sky. I simply survived the one inside my soul. And sometimes, that's the miracle. Today, I didn't win a battle. I walked through one, with my hands open, with my heart aching, with my memories whispering louder than the wind. I didn't rebuke what tried to break me. I listened to it, and in listening I healed, not fully, not suddenly, but truthfully, because some pages of obedience are not written with victory, but with vulnerability. And perhaps today was not about overcoming, but about allowing my tears to testify, to show that even the Son of God carried shadows from the rooms he left. Even the Savior felt the pull of things too precious to hold and too holy to keep. Today, I remembered who I was. Before they called me Rabbi, before they shouted Messiah, before the cross was in sight. And I loved that version of me, but I let him go. So now I ask you, what memory still lives inside you, asking to be released? What sacred thing have you had to walk away from to walk toward God? Tell me. Tell him. I said nothing. I let that moment become a word in my Jesus diary. And if someone ever hears these words, they'll know. This was another day in my Jesus diary. If this page touched a place inside you that still carries memory like a wound, share it, not for numbers, but for the one who feels alone in their grief, for the one who still loves what they had to leave behind. Your sharing may become the voice someone was waiting for in their own silence. And if your heart is still listening, still walking through the wilderness, there's another moment, another word, waiting on the screen. Click it, watch it, not because I asked, but because perhaps he's still speaking through what you're remembering. Let the next page find you.